Linux OTC. Welcome to episode 60. I'm Bill.
And I'm the other guy.
That's
Sorry,
it.
I had to. I had to. 'Cause
Somebody
he's
had
not
to
here.
do it.
Yeah, see, 'cause I'm Majid.
Yeah, because apparently Leo's not here to.
Leo is saying that Halloween's running long. It's like it's the 1st of November.
That was
What the
yesterday.
hell? Exactly. What are you guys doing? I mean, if you're still at the Halloween party now, then I'm a little bit worried for you.
I think
You
what he
know.
might have meant by that was that Halloween went long, and he's trying to recover from
He's
it.
still in bed.
Still a bit
Yeah.
under the weather, shall we say? A little bit
Yes.
thick in the
Well.
head.
Yeah. Well, Muggins here is now onto his third podcast of the day.
You'll get no sympathy from me because this is the first, but by the time I go to bed tonight, it'll be 3 plus all of the editing and publishing. So
Oh no, but I'm just saying that
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I think it will have to be the last one though, because I don't think I can do roundtable as well. I think that might be a bit too much. My wife's already been saying you've just spent the entire day in front of the computer, which, to be
Ooh.
fair, is kind of like a normal day anyway. But anyway,
just broke my headset.
well, that was clever of you, wasn't it? This is going swimmingly well.
Yeah, well, this thing was $12, and I've got what 3 years of use out of it.
Oh, got your money's worth then, I would say.
It might still work. It's just this little piece came out.
But it
But
is true, actually, that
oh,
you,
yeah,
because
it's fine.
as you were saying earlier, you know, while this is a show that benefits from having a number of people like Leo and Eric and Joe on occasion and stuff like that, even just me and you can make a good deal out of this show. And the reason I remembered that is because remember how I said about like I have I don't sleep very well, and especially after the operation, takes a while to go off to sleep and all this kind of stuff. And I started listening to old episodes of
Yeah.
OTC and Mincast, to try and help me get to sleep. So the one I was listening to was the one that we did, Corporate Shills,
Ah,
when it was just me and you.
yeah.
And I actually was enjoying the podcast so much that I didn't fall asleep. Just
It
like,
it
damn, it hasn't worked that one.
Well, it occurs to me that there's almost a magic number with podcasts, I think, where you get more than two people on a podcast, and then I don't know, it's people are kind of over talking each other, and not everybody gets an opportunity to get their whole point across, I think, or I don't know. It seems like two people can really put out a decent show, and then when you start really piling in the people, then it can almost get a little sloppy when you listen to it back. But that being said, it's not like I'm going to do anything about it. But
I mean, I do think it's quantity and quality, as I say,
yeah,
if you understand what I mean. I mean, we're blessed that, the people that come on this podcast are, interesting people who can talk, have good opinions, well, clever, but also very articulate.
right,
And, yeah, we can, chat off the hoof about so many different things. And, you need to have that. I think 3 or 4 is the kind of, because I understand what you mean about people talk over each other. Sometimes it will feel like one person can't get their point across, or wherever someone gets into a real kind of creative flow stroke rant about something, and it's brilliant, but it does kind of mean that the other guys are a bit kind of, well, okay, I haven't really managed to say much. um, but at the same token, there is definitely too many. Anything more than 4 is too many, because then it becomes the kind of classic of jack of all trades, master of none. You've not really managed to get into depth with anything. Not everybody's managed to say, and you can have the most interesting people in the world on. But if you've got, like, as I said, if you start increasing the numbers past a certain point, then yeah, it becomes very messy. The thing about two people, if you've got two really good people, then that's all you need, really.
You're
But the
welcome,
thing
everybody.
is that the thing is, unfortunately, it's me and you, right? And so that's a problem, right? I mean, and so if you look at a lot of the other Linux podcasts which have done really well, right? Three or four, you look at the late night Linux family, the Joe Ressington
Yeah.
podcasts, and all the different ones. They've got Linux Matters, which has got Popey and Wimpress and Mark. Three people. When he does the main show, there's four of them.
Well, with
And
Ressington's shows, though, he does such meticulous post-production editing that
that's true.
You get the idea
That's
from
true.
listening to these podcasts that everybody knows exactly when to speak, everybody knows exactly when to stop speaking, and when in actuality it's all because this is a guy that's doing the editing full time. This is his job.
Yeah,
it
and I think
shows.
that's part, and I think that's the thing. So there's a couple of things. First is the fact that yes, it's his job,
Yeah.
and secondly, everybody on those podcasts are bloody experienced.
Yeah,
I
they're
mean,
professionals.
they're professional podcasters. Do you know what I mean? Graham has been podcasting for 15 years. Ressington himself has been doing for over a decade. He's got 12, 13 years, right? Popey, I mean, how far back do you want to go? Do you know what I mean? When it comes to his podcasting career. So these guys, they know their stuff. They've been doing it for a while, and they've been doing it, as you say, when it comes to Ressington anyway, definitely. It's a job, so you have to do it properly. You can't do a half-assed job because, well, it's just a couple of blokes having a laugh on a Saturday afternoon or evening. This is for him, it's a lot more. A lot more about he gets paid. Do you know what I mean? So the product has to be good, because if the product's shit, then people will just go away, innit?
Yeah, and gosh, if I could get off the road tomorrow and just start making these shows for a living, he must have worked really hard to make that happen. Really plugged away at all of the things that need to be done to start bringing in money to a podcast, because to me it feels daunting. I've had trouble just gathering up the time to put together a Patreon for Mintcast.
Yeah, where's that, Bill?
I know, Bill? and I know that
it will now come out that you've already set it up, and it's been set up for the last 3 years, and all the money's been going into your private account, isn't it?
I'm sure somebody would have mentioned something by now, like, "Well, hang on a minute, I've been paying been paying into the Patreon for 3 years."
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think with the thing with Ressington's podcast, I don't want to turn this into the Joe Ressington show, but whilst he gets paid from being a podcaster, I know that is his day job. It isn't actually the day job for the others. So I remember speaking to, when I had Popey on my podcast, shameless self-promotion again. One of the things that, we talked about was monetization and, how does all that work? And he basically said that, look, us guys who are on, because he's on Linux Matters with Wimpress and Mark. He says, basically, any money that we make, it either goes for expenses or it just goes to Joe, because we've got our own jobs. We've got our own jobs, which we do, and we just turn up and sit and talk for an hour about stuff that we've done, hand it over to Joe. Joe does the rest of the work. There's nothing else that, we have to do. And so I think that leads to a different situation to say something like Jupiter Broadcasting. I hate to keep bringing Jupiter Broadcasting up, where both podcasters or the entire team is only making their money from that.
Is that true though? I mean, I'm not. I knew.
I mean,
that Chris.
I mean, I've got to be honest. I haven't listened to Jupiter Broadcasting podcast for a while. Right? So
I come and go
I
out
might,
of it.
I might, I could be talking out my ass, but you get, from everything that I've seen of them and the people that are on those, it's their daytime job.
Yeah.
For all of them, not just like the person doing the sound or the person doing the Audacity recordings, all of them, and that changes things. It's why, for example, shameless plug again. When I had Juan Carlos Bagnell on my podcast, one of the first questions I asked him was, isn't it difficult being a bit of a contrarian and having some different viewpoints to the majority when it comes to mobile tech? Because he does have quite different views about, Google, Android, all that sort of stuff. He says, yes, it is difficult. I said, does it not get tempting then to kind of toe the kind of the zeitgeist line, because you're leaving money on the table? And he goes, okay, I'm happy to do that, but not everybody is, especially if you're in the YouTube content creation game, which he is. You have to follow the SEOs, you have to follow the trends. You might think that the S25 is a piece of crap phone, but it's been released, so you have to put a review out for it. You may be more interested in something that's a bit more obscure, but it's never coming to the States, so what's the point doing a review of it? But he will do it because for him, the integrity part of it is so important. It just must be really difficult if that's your full-time job to, as I said, leave that money on the table. Difficult.
You would have to treat it like, I mean, it is a small business, really, and you have to think about every little penny that comes in. It must just trickle in, and I don't know. I'd like to try it. I know it takes time to get it all set up, and he indeed, apparently, like Resington, for example, he had the time because of, I assume he had the time to work it all out slowly while maintaining his job in the beginning, and then once he got it all up and running, then it was a full-time thing. And I would love to do something like that. But you're right, everybody else, they've got their own jobs. I've often been curious about, especially the shows that come out every week, and apparently we get about 25 minutes or so of show, but I think at least an hour goes into it every single time they get behind the microphone, and I've been curious as to whether they get any money out of it or not. Of course, I suppose for the people that just, I don't want to sound like they don't deserve any money, but I mean, if you're just showing up and sitting behind the mic, it's probably just a kind of a hobby thing.
Yeah, but let's be honest, people get paid for a lot,
Well, they do, don't they?
A lot less. I mean, look at sports people, for God's sake. They get paid a lot more for not a lot of stuff. They can turn out and do one game or whatever and take home however much.
Apparently, people are making money making TikTok videos sitting in their car.
Yes, I actually have a friend who does that, actually. Although
that
I
just
think
blows me away.
Although, to be fair, I think he stopped doing that. But he did it once or two. He started doing these videos. I think it was during COVID, and then he was just amazed by the pickup. Why were people interested in what he was saying while he sat in his car? And it would normally be some kind of, he had quite forthright views on community stuff. So he'll be like, you see people nowadays, they're spending 20, 30 grand on their weddings, and, how is this sensible? This is going to cause a financial difficulty for people, but people feel like they need to one up the neighbors and things like that. That was his kind of like social commentary type stuff. Yeah.
People go.
And he was amazed. I think he did it mainly because he wanted to get it off his chest. It was COVID. We didn't go around seeing many people. He'd see stuff. You'd see things that might exercise you, but who are you going to talk to about it? Because you didn't have that same kind of, human interaction in those days, comparatively speaking. And I think he got it by just getting it all out onto his TikTok. And then people lapped up because, again, people were starved of social contact because it was lockdown and we're all sat at home. You know, some people literally scared for their lives. You know, so yeah.
I've thought about that sort of fundamental shift in what entertains us these days. And of course, you've got the whole idea that it's very short form content and people have very little time, very little attention span these days. But it's also that we're connecting with normal everyday people now by sharing this content, by consuming this content. It's just normal everyday people putting out something that they're thinking about, and oh my gosh, I'm thinking about that same thing, and it gets me to thinking that the whole thing with the car, though, that's got to be an acoustic thing, or just that's the only way they get any privacy to make a video.
I think I think part of it is that I think it's the privacy to get a video.
Yeah.
To be honest,
I've never.
I mean, there was a time. There was a time I remember, not recently, but when the kids were a bit younger, that if me and my wife had to have a serious conversation about something, somebody's unwell or, somebody's inheritance, really like deep issues they don't necessarily want the kids to hear, but whatever you do, the kids are gonna hear because they're always around. We would go and sit in the car. We'd go sit in the car, make an excuse that we were going to the local shop or something. And then we'd talk about, oh, did you hear, someone's been diagnosed with cancer, shit, what are we going to do about that? We need to do this, we need to do that. Do you see what I mean?
Right, yeah.
It's interesting, actually. I do think the car has become a kind of private I mean, you know this better than me, for God's sake. I mean, you're a truck driver by profession, but it has become a private space where you can decompress. You can learn by listening to stuff. You can call people. I mean, I've got a cousin who's also a doctor, and once in a while he goes to some clinic which is about 2.5 hours away. And I'm like, dude, who can be bothered going all the way that far? I mean, how much are you getting paid? I mean, he's getting paid good money, but... And he was like, 2 hours is fine. I just ring my mom up and we just chat for the 2 hours I'm going. And I'm like, you chat to... I mean, I love my mom, yeah, but chat for 2 hours.
Negative.
Yeah. But he could, but he was able to. Do you know what I mean? Some people, they take that time to catch up with people. I know there's my best mate who still lives up in Newcastle. The only times he rings me is when he's in the car. He's driving home.
Yeah.
He's like, I wanted to sit and have a proper chat with you. And then my commute is 45 minutes, so I'm going to sit and have a proper chat. And then he'd be like, okay, I got home now. I've got to get in. Bath time's happening. This happening. That happening. I'll catch up with you later. So I think there's kind of mentally you're looking at that space differently. You're not just thinking of, I'm getting into the car because I need to go from A to B. You are getting in the car to go to A to B, obviously. And in your case, you're getting it to work and deliver stuff. But there's other things you do in that period now.
It's an environment that you have total control over. You control the temperature. You control how much noise is in that space. I can see that being very visceral. That it's an environment that you can actually feel relaxed in. Most people, some people are traumatized by being in a car. I've known a couple of those, but I can see how that being the kind of mechanism that can bring out some sort of creativity in people, where they're in this environment where they actually feel as though they have some control, they can relax, they can think about what they want to talk about, and they don't feel rushed to get the point across. They can say what they need to say in the amount of time that they need to say it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it is kind of almost like the 21st century equivalent of going out for a run. I've never been a runner, but I used to have a flatmate who was, and he'd always if he was stressed or if he was annoyed, he's like, I'm going to go out for a run. Why? Clear my head. And I could never understand how running in dark and dingy Birmingham would somehow clear your head. But I wonder if it's that same kind of process. You kind of lose yourself a little bit, and you can then, concentrate on other things or whatever it might be. I suppose
Well,
I've noticed that when I go to the gym as well. I've noticed that when I go to the gym, actually, to be fair. Yeah, so may
well,
well
you're
be.
doing something positive, right? You're doing something
Yeah.
that's healthy, and you know that you are, and you can take a little bit of comfort in that, in knowing that, I suppose. Um,
I mean, there's also a lot of kind of, hormones and endorphins and
yeah,
stuff that get released with exercise. I mean, I think I've mentioned this before here as well, that, if I have a particularly stressful day at work, the first thing I do is I go to the gym before I get home because I need to get all of that out. And, I come home and I'm a better father, husband, whatever,
hmm
because I'm just calmer because I've got it all, I used to call it the Louise effect. I feel really sorry now because Louise is unwell now. One
Oh,
of the anesthetic nurses I used to work with. I suppose I could call it the Lynn effect because there's a woman like that as well who insists on dancing to AC/DC. And she's like 55. And it's like, Lynn, just please don't dance to AC/DC.
that's
Please
about the
don't.
age.
Yeah. Anyway, but they're just annoying enough, right? That you get a little bit twitchy, right? They're very good nurses, I must say. I'm not going, nothing about their work, but they are a bit of a pain to work alongside, right? And we've all got colleagues like that, right? And I'd hold it in, I'd keep myself calm, I'd get home, something minor would happen, kid would drop some water, and it would all come flooding out. Why are you effing this, you this, that, and the other? And so I learned that the days when I really felt like that, or even if it wasn't due to colleagues, maybe it was just life stress in general, I'd go to the gym and make a detour on the way I get home. And I'd get home, and my wife would be like, "Wow, you're so calm and relaxed." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, actually." Um, I'm not entirely sure how I got to this. What were we talking about? We were talking about people doing TikToks on their cars, weren't we?
Yeah, and it just flowed
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
usual.
Yeah. Tangent. But yes, so I mean, I'm not asking for sympathy, but yes, this is the third podcast of the day. And um
The third, what was the?
so the first one was my own.
Oh,
Yeah, so I did an episode of the Atypical Doctor podcast where I spoke to a junior colleague of mine who is, as well as being a doctor, is a qualified hypnotherapist. And
cool.
she's done like some certificates and training in mindfulness and a lot of these kinds of psychological things, and she's implementing that in clinical practice. So patients come, they normally come for a pre-op check, have your blood test done and stuff before your operation, and she'll see them then and talk about, so how you feeling and what's this, that, and the other, and gain an idea of, oh, you're anxious about this, is it? Oh, okay, all right, fine, okay, well, why don't you look at it this, a little bit of like psychological therapy almost, if you want to put it that way.
Right.
And she's an anesthesiologist, so this is not something that we're trained to do at all. But she's gone off, learnt that, and is now bringing that back in to help her practice. And she said some really interesting things, like, for example, forget about just rates of anxiety and stress associated with an operation. Your outcomes are better if you are relaxed and calm when you have your treatment. Your wounds heal better. You get mobile quicker. Your pain is less. All this kind of stuff. And so that was the first one, which was very interesting. She was very nervous, poor girl, because, first time she'd ever done anything like, an interview, and that to someone who's I'm significantly senior to her, although as I said, we are colleagues, but I'm like 20 years older than her. And then, actually, maybe not 20, 15. But hey, still, point being that, yeah. And then we're relaunching Distro Hopper's Digest.
Fantastic.
Because Dale, yeah, so I didn't realize how long it had been since they'd done an episode. They haven't done an episode since last summer, June 24.
Yeah, I really didn't know how it was going to go for him because Dale had been talking about coming back for some time, and it just, for one reason or another, it's tough for Dale because he does the same job I do, but he's gone a month at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to ask him about it because I didn't want to kind of pry, but that must be really difficult
I
being
did it
on the
when I was
road for that
younger,
long.
um, and I really feel like I burned up my 20s doing that because I really did. And you miss out on enough just being out during the week, but to be out
Oh
for a
yeah,
month, that's and it's not really necessary because experienced drivers can get jobs that get them home more often. But I guess we get stuck in a rut. I don't know, where we just keep doing the thing that we're used to, whether
yeah.
whether it's
I
making
mean,
us happy or not.
I mean, I suppose there's a bit of the if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mentality. But then I suppose there's also you don't necessarily realize the toll it's taking on you. So I mean,
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about burnout, for example, and he was like, I doing all these distro reviews and this that, and then being on the road, it got a little bit much.
Hmm.
Bearing in mind that it's not the heaviest podcast. It's what once it was once a month, you know.
Yeah.
But they used to get quite in depth, as to how they would review, and they were quite methodical. Um, Interesting thing I found was because I did a little bit of a spiel as to for people who don't know who I am. I'm Dr. Majid. I'm on these other podcasts. I'm a noob imposter, acting like as an imposter, pretending to know something about Linux and all that sort of jazz. And as I was preparing, I was thinking to myself, I don't really distro hop these days. Not like I used to. Not like 10 years ago or how 15 years ago when I first discovered Linux, and I'd always be trying something out and the other. Well, for a guy that thinks he doesn't distro hop, I barely do a lot of distro
I
hopping
was getting ready to
because
say, I don't know why you think that, because you, of all of
because
us, you're
because
the most.
because I sat here and I went through all the different, and I still forgot stuff as well. I tried Fedora, I tried Kashi 3 separate times, I tried Kubuntu twice, I tried Bluefin, I tried Manjaro, Mint twice, I tried Ubuntu normal and then the Ubuntu ARM version, I tried Aurora, I tried Vanilla Debian 13, I tried Cosmic twice, once with the alpha and once with the beta. Open Media Vault and Ubuntu server on the server box, right? And that's before I even think about the Raspberry Pi, which at the moment is turning into an emulation machine. And I thought to myself, okay, I obviously still am a distro
Yeah, I
hopper.
was going to say that if anything uh, would make you would be a telltale sign of you being a distro hopper, that would be it. Just gosh,
But
I
I mean,
don't.
but I do think it's um I think I've learned a bit about the process, which is I did actually talk about, which is that there's distro hopping because you just want to try something new and you want to just see what it's like. And that's fine. There's distro hopping because you want to try something new, like, and change your workflow, right? Or change the setup that you have. So for example, the server that I've got is a different way of me doing things. In the past, I would, if I wanted media, I had media on a hard drive that I loaded up onto my phone or my tablet or my laptop, right? If I wanted to uh, back up photos, again, it used to be onto a hard drive. Then it got onto cloud storage like Google Photos or whatever. But now I'm trying different things. I've got the Jellyfin server to work. I've got the image server to work in a fashion. I've got audio bookshelf to work, which was surprisingly easy.
Yeah,
Surprising. All of these are Docker composed, by the way.
yeah,
Um, I think I've got my head, kind of got my head around. I just need to figure out what I'm missing with image that's causing the thing that I'm having a problem with. But for uploading new photos, it's fine. I mean, it's that's okay on that end as well. Now I'm thinking of sync thing, so that I can kind of have a full backup of the phone on my server.
yeah.
So I mean, but so in that situation, I have distro hopped, but I've done it because I have a specific. I actually want to do something different, change the way that I'm doing stuff now to changing something I'm doing differently. You know. Then there's other things that I've learned, such as if you really, really need something to work, really need something to work, all roads lead to Ubuntu and Mint. You
They
know, whether
sure
you,
do.
yeah, I mean, Mint for the desktop, Ubuntu for the laptop. I still prefer Ubuntu on laptops compared to Mint. I'll be honest with you.
Well,
Um,
why do we think that everything works? Is it because that's probably the platform that's being used during development, or that's where most of the documentation is relevant, or
I think those are the two main reasons. So,
yeah,
for example, uh, when we were chatting, I was talking about how I'd used Bluefin, which is George Castro's Ubuntuized Fedora Atomic Composable Immutable, whatever we're calling it these days, distro. And I just wanted to just try it out. I've got a separate distro hopping device now, which is why I do my actual distro hopping if I wanted to. And I was on that, and I thought, okay, let's start setting it up. This is a couple of months ago, and I've mentioned here, for example, that I use different cloud storage providers. Mega, iStrive, pCloud, these kind of end-to-end encrypted ones. I'm still waiting for the Linux client of Proton Drive, and then they can take my money.
well, I don't know if that's coming or not because that's
Well, I mean, it's been going on for 2 years now, and it still
yeah.
hasn't come now. You do wonder about it, don't you? Anyway, and I was trying to find them, and I I couldn't get flat packs of them because that's how on those immutables you need everything's basically a flat pack app, and there was no flat pack of the ones that I was looking for. There was Debs, there was RPMs, yeah, but there wasn't any flat packs. So I was like, okay, that's a problem. Similarly, I remember when I was running Kashi OS, which is Arch based. I don't know if you've heard of Arch, Bill. I mean, it's a distro.
I've heard it's a
Some people use
distro.
it.
It's relatively, I don't know. It seems to
It's
have a
quite.
reputation of being more difficult, more advanced, smarter, more affluent Linux users, people that really
All
know
right.
their way around Linux, people
So
that
so I-
have taken
so
Linux seriously.
so I'm assuming you've never
My
used it then, because you don't fill any of those criteria.
uh, good old
Yeah.
Arch.
But so when I was running Kashi, I thought, okay, I'll get Discord onto it. I got Discord up, had Discord working, and then I got it through the AUR. And did I get it through the AUR? Did I get? Yeah, no, I did get it through the AUR. And one time, which was just before a bloody podcast as well, right? I I opened it, put it on, and Discord wouldn't start because Discord was searching for an update, and the update was searching for a deb file because that's the way the script had been written.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so in the end, I had to then, I don't know if you remember, I did a couple of episodes off my laptops and stuff like that because I was having issues. That was one of them once because so um, I think it is true that if you, I suppose this actually goes back to our corporate shills episode actually because we did talk about this a little bit then as well. If you're a big company, who are you going to make your stuff for? Seeing that Linux is a inverted commas fragmented. I'm not sure entirely how fragmented it really is, but it has a perception of being fragmented with multiple distros, multiple packaging formats, multiple compatibility, all these kinds of things. You're going to do it for the thing that requires the least amount of effort, and the least amount of effort is going to be for one of the big distros. And let's be honest, I would say 65%, 2/3, I'd say, of all distros are Ubuntu stroke Debian based.
Yeah.
I'd say. I think that's a fair.
I think that's fair because when you go outside of those ecosystems and then you want to make these things work, these cool new projects, you can't really go in some cases, you can't really go to the same documentation that everybody else is using to get it working, because you've got to do it the Fedora way. You've got to do it the Arch way, which, in all fairness to Arch, Arch is known for how fantastic their documentation is, and most of the time you're sorted. In the case of Discord, most of the time, if it gets outdated and you just do a Pacman TAC capital S Discord, it'll update. But it's altogether possible because some of these distributions are not backed by a big company, as you say, and distribution like Arch is relying on what they call a trusted member, I think it's called, which are the people in the community that are tasked with maintaining certain packages within the repositories. It's not a completely automated thing, and so somebody has to make sure whether it's they've got some kind of automation in place or what. They got to make sure that package gets built and put into the repository. So you could run into a situation where Debian or Discord pushes an update, and then the developer or the person that's maintaining that package hasn't caught it yet, and it just won't work.
Yeah, and so I mean, the point that I'm just trying to say is that, I think that is why you're right about the documentation. I mean, the Arch Wiki is amazing and it's useful for other Linuxy things.
But you're stuck in that documentation. You really got to use Arch documentation, Fedora-based documentation, because in most cases these projects
there can be nuanced and subtle differences even if the distros have the same base. You remember my Open Media Vault problems. Open Media Vault is basically Debian, right? So you would think that any guides that you use that would work on Debian and probably on Ubuntu would work, but they didn't, because at the end of the day, it's its own thing, And if that's the case, when you can have a distro that is based off something which is broadly used, what about when it's something not completely different, but when it is a different branch, whether it is the Fedoras or the Arch or the Immutables or whatever? Do you know what I mean? And even a friend of mine, who he saw that I'd shared a thing on social media and I finally got my Portainer working and I've got all my Docker Compose stuff and whatever. He sent me a message saying, "Whoa, how are you doing all of this?" And he's not technical. And I went, "Oh, I'm just, setting up a server." "What, in the cloud?" I went, No, my own server at home, and I'm setting up these services. And I'm like, "Okay."
That's what people think, okay, though, when you start talking servers.
And then he says, "Oh, we're using Linux." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so you do know a little bit then, if you've come across." Yeah. And he went, and I went, "Yeah, I am using Linux. And he goes, "Are you using Ubuntu?" And I went,
"Ooh, this is going well."
I am actually. Okay.
Almost getting a little weird.
Well, and then and he says, "Oh, so how you install these?" So I thought, okay, maybe he does know what he's talking about. Maybe I've just missed something, right? And I said, "Well, I'm putting them on containers with Docker, and then Portainer kind of looks at my things." And he goes, "Okay, I have no idea what any of that means." Anyway, the reason why he knew this was he's a project manager for a company, right? And he does different projects. So he's done sourcing healthcare equipment for a hospital once, for example, or there's lots of other things that he's done. And at some point he'd had to do a project which had involved computers and servers. And so he had heard of some of these things, and some of these concepts. It wasn't something that he did or had a passion for. It wasn't even his normal day work, but he'd done projects where that had come up, and so he knew a couple of things. So what I got from that was that if normies know anything about Linux, it's that Ubuntu exists.
Yeah. I think that was still an above average amount of knowledge.
And that it's used in servers. I say these are the two things. You know, that if anybody knows a little bit about technology, they know that bit. Whether it's they use it is a completely separate thing. I'm not talking about whether people use it or not.
Right.
You know, it's just it's something that, you know, at least people have heard of. You know, it's like, for example, you know, everybody's heard. You don't have to be a techie to know that there's two major mobile operating systems. That there's iOS and Android. Do you?
Yeah.
You just need to know that a smartphone exists.
Right.
Right. So if you know that a server exists, then you know probably that Linux exists. And if you know that Linux exists, then you might know that Ubuntu exists. And then it stops. That's it. Then it stops there. It doesn't go further than that.
It might go a little further than that in the future because this new Amazon Fire TV stick, they're switching to Linux.
Yeah.
And in an effort to...
we talked about this. We talked about this on Mincast, didn't we? What a load of bollocks.
Well, I ordered one because...
I knew you would.
It was $39 when I first put it in the cart, right? And now it's down to $24.99 for one of these things. So I don't know if they're trying to push it on people or what.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Oh, one of Amazon's shticks has always been get the hardware out there at a loss if it needs to be, right? And then people will start using the services, and that's what will make the money. You know, in what universe are Kindle tablets 20, 30 pound? I mean, I know they're not the greatest ones in the world, right? I know that, right? But still, 20, 30 pound. Are you really telling me?
Well, hardware being a loss leader, there's nothing new about that because game consoles are the same. And
yeah. So
this thing, though, is the irony lost on anybody else, though, that they're switching to Linux in an effort to lock it down further? Is that even possible?
Do you know what that sounds like? That sounds like a bunch of corporate manager people sitting there going, well, you know, we need to lock this down. We need to change the operating system. That could be, so that way we can lock it down. What other operating systems are there out there? Well, there's this.
Well, Linux is free to use. Oh,
yeah, exactly. Well, this Linux stuff. We don't have to pay anything. That's it. Let's order that one. I'm not giving Microsoft any more money. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can. I mean, I'm being facetious and I'm taking the piss, right? But you can imagine this conversation happening. It's not entirely out of the realms of possibility, is it?
Yeah,
You can imagine some idiot who doesn't know anything saying, you know, this kind of... It reminds me of, for example... Oh, man, what was it? There was one issue we had in the hospital. I may well have mentioned this already on one of the episodes, but we were being offered a piece of software for our preoperative assessments, right? And it was like, yes, and you know, there'll be money that will be coming from the network that will pay for this piece of software that we can use, and it's interoperable with all the other different hospitals. And then the minute you started looking at it, you then started realizing that the people who'd come up with this idea had no idea how technology worked. They had no idea what interoperable means. They had no idea. They thought that money being available meant we've got money to buy the thing. Not, what about the maintaining? What about the tendering process? What about the procurement process? What about all the SOPs you have to write? Because, you know, technology is a piece of equipment, right? And that needs to have standard operating procedures in the NHS, right? It was just, you could just tell that nobody who had been, the minute you got anybody technical, so one of my colleagues he's an anesthetist, but he's also the lead for digitization, basically, in our hospital. You know, everything moving to electronic patient records, and all this kind of stuff, right? It's quite a big role, actually. The minute he got involved, he was like, "This is crap. This isn't going to happen. I don't care if the network's going to give us 50 grand to pay for it. No, it doesn't work." Yeah, and you know, it's now been, you know, parked off in. So, you know, people making decisions have no idea how the technology works. And as I said, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be if somebody, you know, at Amazon had gone, yeah, well, this is a free operating system. We can make it so that only our app store is on there, and that's it. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, this might be a win for us. So what is it Napoleon said? Never interrupt your enemy while he's making a mistake.
Yeah.
Right? So
Thank
it's
you
like,
very much.
yes, go ahead, lads. Go ahead. Let's see how this works.
Because I'm
Right?
thinking from the positive side of this. I'm thinking, okay, so it's going to run on Linux. That means you're going to make thin clients that run on Linux. You'll have to get your. I don't care if they are Electron based. They're going to be a proper thin client piece of software to consume your Netflix, your Prime, your Hulu, your Disney Plus.
Okay, clear something up for me because this is my lack of knowledge. What is the problem that people have with Electron apps? What is the issue?
I think just, well, in my opinion is that when it comes down to it, people just don't like things that are based on Chromium because of Google. And Electron is basically just Chromium without the browser interface.
Okay.
It's for if you have an online service and you want to make an app for it that you can install and then run it from your applications menu, and it'll have its own basically its own runtime, which is Electron, and then it'll have its own notifications and its own process ID and all that, outside of the browser. But people don't like it because it's just one more thing we're leaning on Google, and yeah, it's open source, but nobody trusts Google anymore for anything. So I think that's at its core why people don't like it. Fine. But beyond that, on a technical level, it's a heavyweight piece of software too, because you're basically running a browser in order to run this service.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, but going back to your point, you're right. I mean, they're going to have to, at the very, very least, make web apps that work easily with the device.
Yeah.
Right. At the very least, more likely, if they're as anemic as they probably sound, if they're £25-30, right, dollars, whatever.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to make it quite lightweight, as you say, thin client style. My question would be, if they wanted to lock it down, how would they lock it down? What, from a technical perspective, what are the ways that a device like this could be locked down? Is it like something to do with BIOS? Is it to do with I know on phones you have like bootloaders which are unlocked and locked and all this kind of stuff. The reason I'm saying this is that, is that actually, I mean, I know I've just poo-pooed the idea, but is that actually viable? Could you ever lock down something that is Linux based? It just sounds...
I think they can try, but I think it will inevitably get hacked. They might as well, if they really wanted to engage with us, and they would really wanted to come out with a product that would get a lot of enthusiasm, then they would make it open. That way, this thing, the software for it could be put in GitHub. I know that's not going to happen, but make this something that can be, at least to some degree, replicated on a Raspberry Pi or something like that. So people that want to go through the work of setting up a Pi to make a TV set-top box kind of thing, make the whole operating system something that we could install on a Raspberry Pi. You connect to it with your Amazon account that you're paying for. You'll drum up some nerd support by doing something like that.
Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. So, devil's advocate time. What is Amazon gaining out of it?
I think it would open their platform up to third parties making hardware. And they are still, because the benefit that they're reaping from this product, period, is to bring more people, as you said, get the hardware out there, bring more people in, sign up for, our platform. In my mind, this will bring even more people in, because anybody can make a device. If it's open, anybody can make a device, slap this Amazon OS thing on it, and that's bringing in even more people to their platform.
But then aren't isn't licensing going to get in the way of that?
That's up to them, though, isn't it? Because I mean, any of
Because I mean,
us,
because if you're taking Linux, right, it's under what, GPL 3? Am I right?
I think so.
Yeah. So they can't necessarily make their proprietary Amazon OS around that, can they? Because it's still got GPL 3 components in. So then you can't license it out, can you?
That's a good question. I mean, they, obviously they're getting around it somehow just by distributing this device. I mean, it's either legal or it's not.
I mean, they may well be. I mean, or they're not because they don't care about the operating system. They just wanted to make sure that nobody else could sideload or install things without Big Brother Amazon knowing and going through their app stores or whatever it might be. Do you know what I mean? I still think this is a very, very confused decision. I really do. I mean, as I said, don't stop your enemy when he's making a mistake. Great, go ahead. You knock yourself out, people. Do you know what I'm saying?
Honestly, what was the problem that they were trying to fix? Was people getting these devices and hacking them in droves? I mean, because this is a fundamental shift.
I don't know what the situation's like in the States, right? I do know that in the UK, it was a big business. Dodgy Cody boxes is what started off first. Where you basically had Android TV boxes.
Yeah.
Then you started getting people who would, hack your Fire TV for you and put all the channels on and stuff, which is all stuff you could do yourself, actually.
Right.
But they'd charge, and then obviously there'd be copyrighted stuff there that you shouldn't be doing. Access to, for example, legally obtained Linux ISOs, if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And however much you try, okay, fine, you can stop the people selling it, but you can't stop the people doing it, because all you needed was a web browser and a couple of apps, a downloader, a VPN, and a torrent downloader, and there you go. You're sorted, right?
Yeah.
And also, there's a big thing of IPTV, Internet Protocol TV, which seems to be based on hypnotics, actually, where basically somebody's out there with a server, routing all this illegal content, really, if you want to be really specific about it, copyrighted stuff, movies, TV series, sports, whatever. Servers somewhere in like Pakistan or Bangladesh or something, and you're accessing it using some kind of what looks like a fork of hypnotics, as I said. And that works basically on Android. You could get it to work on Linux, but basically that works on Android. And there's loads and loads and loads and loads of different services out there. You pay them 15 quid a month, they give you access to everything, right? And so I think that's become the latest thing, and that has improved and improved because people have got Android phones and people like their Android phones and they like doing stuff. And I know people who have a spare Android phone just so they can do this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
It's just strange that there's enough of that to make them take such a pervasive sort of action like this, because
okay, the other thing could be that you're going to have to they're having to maintain Fire OS, right, which is their Android fork, right? And it depends on Android open source project, right? So it depends on something that's fundamentally not in their control.
So there is that. Okay, now you might be getting somewhere, because you're really kind of at odds with Google directly.
I mean, and let's be honest, Amazon and Google have not got along for a very long time. For a long time, you couldn't watch YouTube on any of these Fire tablets, and vice versa. You couldn't watch Prime Video on a Chromecast or Google TV, right?
Yeah.
Because they were both being, having a dick measuring contest, basically, about, and so if, again, I'm thinking from a management perspective, if you have a piece of technology which is dependent on another piece of technology which may or may not be a hostile entity to you, that's a problem, right?
So that might be their number one motivating factor. Now that you
You know,
mention it, yeah,
and even if it's not a hostile thing, right? There's still development work you're going to have to do because you still got to get the Android open source project, right? That is released, and you're going to have to then do the tweaks that you have to do for your Fire OS fork that comes out. And then there's always security things that need doing. We all get security updates, every couple of months, don't we? And best phones get it every month. My S25 Ultra just got, the latest security patch. And
yeah.
so there is a, do you want to call it technical debt? I don't know. Do you want to call it a technical outlay? I don't know what you would call it, but there is costs involved in just maintaining and standing still, as they say, right? And so could someone have said, well, okay, well, we've got this piece of software. It's not necessarily controlled by us. We have to maintain it, and so put money into it. And so these are the costs involved. We're not making any money on the hardware. We're hoping to make the money on the services. I do wonder how much money they really think they're making from these services, though, because most people who have got Amazon Prime have got Amazon Prime, and that's it. I've got Amazon Prime. I watched the odd series or whatever on it. Do I do much else? I mean, I haven't got a Kindle.
You got the
subscription
2 day
or anything.
shipping and all that.
Yeah.
You know,
No. But no. What I mean is, Amazon Prime's biggest USP, the reason that most people who have got it, is for the shipping, right?
Yeah.
The idea that you can just go on your phone. Like my wife will say, "Oh, kids need some new pens for school. All right, that's it. Take this out today. We'll come tomorrow morning. End of. Move on." Right?
Yeah.
And so, remember we've talked about before about how a lot of these companies just look at growth of numbers, not the absolute numbers, but the growth of the number, right?
Yeah.
How many people do you reckon there are who have Amazon Prime primarily for the shipping, but hey, now they've got a Prime Video thing, so they watch Invincible or whatever Amazon series, who are then going to go, oh, look, I could buy X service, Paramount Plus, through my Amazon. Oh, look, there is a movie which has just come out in theaters, which they're now offering on Amazon Prime for me to rent for $5. How much money do you think they're making from that? Because I don't think they're making a huge amount, really. Because if it's one way that you're going to stop somebody from doing something that they could do for free is charging them.
Yeah.
I've
wondered how many people get their Paramount Plus and whatnot through, because you can pretty much do that with every one of these services, except I don't think you can do that with Disney Plus. And
I think it's Netflix you can't do it with.
And Netflix you can't do
Disney
it with.
I think you might be able to do it with Disney. But anyway, besides the point. The point I'm trying to say is, so where are you making your money? Do you know what I mean? By having the Fire Stick. Okay, the Fire Stick is a viewing experience, right? It's about plugging that into your television. It's not about audiobooks. It's not about Kindle. It's not even really about Amazon Music. I mean,
it can be.
It can be if you're really like, I've got a sound bar and a Sonos and
My brother does that.
But generally speaking, right? It's not a massive market, is it? It exists. I'm not denying it doesn't exist, right? So you're using your Fire TV to watch television, right?
Yeah.
And so if you are watching television through Prime Video, well, you've already paid the money because so there's no extra you're going to be paying there. So where are you making the money? As I said, you're either buying content specifically or you're subscribing to services through them and they're getting a cut like the Apple tax and the Google taxes, for apps and whatever. It's not the great. Do you see what I mean? It's like I can imagine management sitting back going, "Where are we going to make our next billion? Where are we going to make our next 10 billion? Where? How?" As I said, maybe I'm just being incredibly dense, which is quite well possible.
Well, I
have
think
been
it's
sat in
true,
front of a
though.
computer all day, but I don't understand where they're going to make money. So now they're like, okay, well, maybe we can make money by locking people into it,
Or
like
not even
Apple
that.
have.
It's probably not going to cost them very much to migrate to Linux on the back end of these things. That's not going to cost them much, and it's not going to lose them most of their customers if all of a sudden it's using Linux instead of Android, because
Oh, I don't
as
know.
long as
Oh,
you
I don't
make
know
the
about that.
if you make the
I don't know about that.
interface
I'll
the
get to
same,
that. Yeah.
but as you say, the whole experience with Android, and as time goes on, it has to be said, actual usable Android is diverging from AOSP as we speak.
Oh yeah, I mean it has massively. I mean, have you ever tried an AOSP ROM recently?
Not lately. It's just that's
I mean,
not as much of a thing anymore.
Yeah, it's like getting a phone from 2015.
Yeah. So the more that happens, and the more Amazon sees that that's happening, well, it's going to get more and more impossible just to get a hold of AOSP to build on top of it. We need to, the one thing that Linux is not going to rip the rug out for them beneath them. No matter what happens, no matter what they build on top of Linux, at least this will be a platform that they can depend on being able to make it work one way or the other. Anyway, we could go on and on this subject, but we got to wrap it up. Let us know what you think about any of this. I'm going to certainly talk about this in more depth when I get my new Fire Stick. I don't think I'm going to switch to it, but it was so cheap.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, I think just one last point, just to finish off the point we were talking about before. The thing that you're saying about, well, people aren't going to notice the difference, I'm not 100% sure, because you're going to need to make new apps, right?
Yeah.
Of these. And there's going to be a time delay. And I've mentioned it before, the advertising is terrible. How do you know which version you're getting? Yeah? You get Fire. We all know that naming of products is crap anyway.
Yeah.
Anybody remember the HTC Sprint 4G, 5G with this, or you get rubbish names anyway in technology. But here you don't. You have no idea. Fire TV, is it the Android one? Is it the Linux one? And you just know that some people are going to buy it and go, "Oh, I can't do what I did before on it. Oh, forget this."
I think for the vast majority of people that are just buying it to do what it's intended to do, there is the win here for Amazon would be to make the experience exactly the same as the old device. If they pull that off, if the software is good enough to where it runs just as well as the old devices, then I think they pulled off a win here. Because the people that are not going to be happy about it are the ones that were doing something with these devices that was not intended to begin with. But as time goes on, if it's Linux, I promise you, there's going to be hacks, because there's only so much you can do to lock down Linux. I'm sorry. You can make access control lists. You can put everything behind root. You can firewall off everything. But eventually there's going to be some kind of vulnerability found, or there's going to be some kind of way to get into the file system to do what you want to do with it. And because you just can't stop these things. It's inevitable. The smarter you think you are, the more people smarter than you there are. So
it's like Thanos. He's inevitable.
Yeah, it is inevitable. Anyway, let us know what you think. Show at linuxotc.org. Look at my memory. We'd love to hear what you think. We did get a little, right before I turned off comments on the website, we had a comment about the audio quality. And I'm a little late with this one because it was from several months ago, where Eric was having a little bit of semblance problem in his microphone, and somebody recommended using a de-esser. We appreciate that, even though it took us so long. That's why I've turned off comments on the website. Just email us or get a hold of us on Discord. We've got a Discord link right there on the website. Yeah, I mean we're on the Discord all the time. In fact, I've got notifications turned on, so if you put something on there, I'm going to get it right away, and chances are I will respond right away. So anyway, we will see you in 2 weeks. Until then, I'm Bill.
And I've been Majid.
Have a good one, folks. Excellent. Thanks, everybody in the live stream, if there was any.